Slavery was officially outlawed with the end of the Civil War, yet our country still feels its lasting legacy of racism and discrimination. Keith Kosinski sat down with students at Jackson State University in Mississippi, the last state to outlaw slavery, to hear their thoughts on what life is like today for Black Americans.
How would you describe the current state of being a Black American?
Hopeful.
You should be able to feel like you can go anywhere around here, but you can't.
To be pro-Black does not mean to be anti-white.
Complicated.
Complicated. Because while slavery ended 150 years ago, it wasn't the end of oppression for African Americans.
It's the 150th anniversary of the ending of the Civil War. What does that mean to you?
Since the Civil War has ended, of course, years ago, many positives have come. We've had the first African Americans to be in the state legislature, into the Congress, Speaker of the House, even the President of the United States.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
But the negatives that continue to persist flow from this heritage.
Blacks were freed in 1865, and 5 years later got the right to vote. But it took another 100 years before discrimination at the polls was outlawed with the Voting Rights Act. Jim Crow laws that supported segregation of blacks weren't outlawed until 1964. Before the Civil Rights Movement, African Americans were treated as second-class citizens, not only facing discrimination, but hangings and beatings.
It's within 2 generations that we can say that the Civil Rights Movement happened. So I'm living with people who participate in the Civil Rights Movement. You can't tell me that we live in a post-racial society. Our great-grandparents lived through Jim Crow, convict leasing, discriminatory housing policies, and slavery. They passed those traumatized experiences to their children, and eventually down to us.
You were telling me, you said that some of your white friends said just get over it. Would you believe just the history makes you more sensitive?
The reason why it's a sensitive topic, you brought up the whole, your grandfather or your grandparents went through this. My grandfather was actually lynched by the Ku Klux Klan. So every family reunion, I'm without a grandfather. I never got to meet him. I'm the first and only in my family to actually go to university. And my folks have to send me money like all the time. It's 5 of us. And so sometimes I think about that, I'm like, if all 5 of us were here right now, like they wouldn't have money to pay bills.
Once everything was desegregated, blacks started going to white businesses. Whites didn't come to black businesses. If you raise the consciousness, you raise the awareness of self, you give us economic autonomy, give us the finances to build our own institutions, we can begin to see a more holistic, healthy black culture. You'll see a drop in crime rates. You can see a drop in drug use because people will begin to love themselves because they know themselves.
It's almost scary because you should be able to feel like you can go anywhere around here, but you can't.
So you feel like there's an element of profiling that goes on in the community?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
I mean, just to kind of further the conversation, not even in a joking, yeah, man, there's definitely a
We're not laughing because it's a joke. We're laughing because this is our life, and sometimes you have to laugh to keep it quiet.
Right.
I'm not gonna say ever since Mike Brown, but I know their parents have probably been talking to them a little bit more, been on them a little bit more about, well, you know, don't get smart or don't resist police and whatever they say, just do it so you can come home, all this kind of stuff. It happens because we want to live.
It's bigger than just education, right? African Americans are disproportionately affected by these zero tolerance policies. There are, policies and practices that actually push black students out of the school system. And sometimes it's come from the family. The family is too broken, and some students just can't overcome. And I understand it takes a lot for students to overcome those family issues. Everybody can't be a superstar.
Looking at the future, will things get better, or do you think things will get worse for Black Americans?
I'm hopeful of America. This is the land that I love. And this is the land with people with some of the biggest hearts.
It's going to take more white Americans to get on board. We need, white Americans to see that you shouldn't be afraid of us. So embrace the difference. First, acknowledge the difference, embrace it, and move forward together.
As American citizens, we should all embrace our differences.
Yes.
Yes. But also find unity in those differences.
Exactly. Well, I think that we can have these discussions about different cultural identities, and we can become a progressive America. But we have to be at the table. We have to be respectful of our differences, and we have to be willing to operate in confidence and not fear.
Now you can see more of our conversation by checking out my blog post at channel1.com.
Thanks, Keith. Really powerful stuff. All right, coming up, we're going to hear how you are making an impact.